Hey, I'm Rob from JestaThaRogue.com, and at the UK Games Expo 2024 I got to play a demo of the prototype of Rebirth, which is a game from Mighty Boards and is designed by the one and only Reiner Knzia. And if you're watching this video when it comes out, it will still be on Kickstarter. You've got about a day. If not, I'm sure there'll be late pledges if you're early enough. So what is this game about? So, following a series of calamities that left civilization in shambles, societies around the world are being rebuilt anew in harmony with nature. Scotland lies in ruins, and the ancient clans have taken upon themselves to restore the land. As clan leaders, you will compete for strategic control of the land by rebuilding its prestigious castles. Okay, so I've got a quick overview of how the game plays. So you have these three token types, and two of them are very similar. One has the electric bolt on it, and that is energy farm, and the other one has that sort of leaf corn looking icon on it, and that is a food farm. And at the end of your turn, you draw one of these tokens, so you've got it in your hand ready, and on your turn, all you do is you place the token you've got in your hand. And there's certain spaces on the board where you can place them. There are some blank spaces where you can place any token. And when you place one of these farm tokens, the first one you place, you get 1 point for. And if you place another one next to it later on, because you've got two tokens, you'll get 2 points, and then 3 points, 4 points, etc. And you'll score these through the game, and that's the same for both the energy and the food farms. If you place a token next to a cathedral, you put one of these stacks on it to show that you've activated this cathedral's ability, and what that lets you do is lets you draw some of these cards, or one of these cards to be more precise, and at the end of the game you can have some of these for scoring. If you place your token next to a castle, you get to put one of your castle minis on the castle space, but if later on somebody else places a token next to that castle so they have more tokens around that castle than you do, they will gain control and they will swap your castle with their castle. And the other token type are these settlements, and these have got little houses on them, and you can place these in cities. And cities are made up of either 1, 2 or 3 spaces depending how big they are. So like Glasgow and Edinburgh and the big cities in Scotland have 3 spaces. And some of the cities have ports, and if you play your settlement tile onto a space with a port, you get a bonus point. And when all the spaces in a city are full, players are going to score depending on the size of that city, whoever's got the most icons on the settlement tiles within that city. So there's a bit of area control there. Well, how do you win? Well, you're scoring for those cities as you go through the game. You're also scoring for your energy farms as you build out these big clumps of them around the board. You also score for all of the end game cards that you've got, or the ones you've managed to pick up by placing them next to cathedrals. And you score 5 points for each castle you control at the end of the game. And the player with the most points wins. And what are the main mechanisms? Well, obviously there's tile placement. It says tile placement on BoardGameGeek. It doesn't feel like tile placement because you're not placing tiles next to other tiles. I always think of tile placement in games like Carcassonne where you're placing a tile up against another tile. This just feels like you're placing something in a space. It feels more like pattern building than it does tile placement. There's a bit of area control with trying to control the castles and trying to control the cities to get those extra points. And yeah, I think it is, for me, it's definitely more of a pattern building game where you're trying to build these roots of tiles rather than a tile placement game, because they don't feel like tiles, they just feel like little chits. But however you see it, they're the main mechanisms. And what about the theme? Well, you're supposed to be rebuilding Scotland after a calamity. I don't know what that calamity is. It says it's a series of calamities. I'm sure the shambles of the societies around the world, according to the game blurb, there is something we don't really want to get into. But it does feel abstract because you're not really rebuilding. I mean, you are rebuilding, but you're rebuilding exactly where it was. All the castles, cathedrals, cities, ports, they're already there. You're just rebuilding them. You're not starting Scotland from scratch. You're not making it better. You're just sort of rebuilding it completely and as it was. So I would say it's not a great excuse for a theme to give the name of the game Rebirth when you're just basically rebuilding this one country. But whatever gets you to the table, I don't really care. Looking at setup of the game, well, you lay the board out, it's double-sided. I'll get into the other side of the board in a minute, and then you distribute the tiles. You'll have a bag. I think if you back it on Kickstarter, you get a bag to pull your tiles out of. Otherwise, you have to place them all face down and give them a shuffle round if you haven't got that bag. And then you need to shuffle the deck of gold cards. And when you're playing the Scotland side of the board, that is it, I believe, for setup. You just need to make sure people's got their components, and then you shuffle one deck of cards, and then you crack on. So that's nice and simple. That's always good fun. So setup is simple. Let's look at the components and artwork. Now we're looking at a prototype board here, which is why you can see I was playing with red castles and pink tiles. There's some other colours there that don't quite match up as well. If you look at the board, especially the cities don't look very clear. Now they did show me a new version of the board that's going to be the one that's going to be in the retail version. Now it doesn't look as pretty, but the most important thing was functionally the iconography and the cities are much clearer. So the board you're looking at here, while it looks nice, it's not as nice as the board you're going to get, but the important thing is it's going to be easier to play, and that's the important thing. As for ease of teaching, this is very easy. completely. Players are going to draw a tile and then they're going to place that tile. If they're not sure where they can place that tile, it should be easy because the spaces on the board show you where you can place them. You can place food farms in food spaces, you can place energy farms on energy farm spaces, you can place settlements in cities, it's printed on the board where they can go, and then there's the blank spaces that can have either of the farms. That's it. So if you've got a new player and they're not exactly sure what to do, they've only got the one tile in their hand, they can show it to the other players, and the other players can say, well, here's your options. So you can help people who are really not understanding the game, which is good. And with the minimal rules, you know, there's not really that much to the game from a rules perspective, which is good. The only thing you will have to explain to people that may have to look at their hand is explain how some of the goal cards work. And because we're playing with the prototype and the rulebook was sort of a A4 rulebook that was cut in half, and it was very rough, and the images were just basically, they looked a bit hand-drawn, and it was really obviously not ready yet. Hopefully the new rulebook will have something that can clarify how these scoring cards work, because we did struggle with some of them and what they do and the intricacies around how they score at the end of the game. But apart from that, this will be a very easy game to teach. If you're looking at similar games, it's funny because I said, when I saw the Kickstarter, and I said to my friend, I said, this looks a bit like Samurai, which is also by Reiner Knzia. And while I was sat playing it, a couple of guys come up to me and said, oh, this looks good. And one of the guys went, kind of looks like Samurai. So that had my suspicions confirmed. But I see what you mean, because you are placing tiles around something to control it, whereas in Samurai, you're placing your tiles around it to take something off the board. Here, you're trying to place your tiles around to get things out on the board, or get your castle out on the board at the very least. So it is very different. The one thing it does remind me of, because you're drawing that one thing and then you're deciding how to use that one thing best, and most of the time you are placing that one tile next to a tile you've already got so that you can build out these routes and sort of control these areas around the board. It reminded me of Kingdom Builder. Now, it's not the same. Obviously, this is a bit more complex than Kingdom Builder, but just that feeling that I had. You know how when you're playing a game, it feels like another game, even though it's not exactly what it is? It gives me the feeling of Kingdom Builder, just because that's the way the game played out. Okay, what do I think of the game? Let's start with the positives. Well, it is very nice looking. It looks good on the table. The new board looks really nice. As the city's building out, it gets more and more colourful. There is two ways to play the game. So this is Scotland. On the other side of the board is going to be Ireland. Now they're going to place towers instead of cathedrals. So when you place next to a tower, the tower has a different ability. So you're not drawing a goal card. The tower that you activate is going to give you a different ability. And I believe they're face down, and the first person to use it flips it face up, so everybody knows what it is afterwards. I think, don't quote me on that, but I think that's how those towers work. But they've all got different abilities around the board, so they're going to move around, which is pretty cool. And so the goals, instead of you going to a cathedral and drawing your own goal card and keeping it hidden, those goals are going to be public. Everybody's going to have the same ones, which to me sounds so much better. This should be the first version of the game. I understand that Scotland is the easier version, it's the better version to play for a demo at a convention, but this Ireland version seems to me like the gamer version. That's the side of the board I want to play. I'm really excited to play that. Also, with the goals being public, it's going to help with that teaching thing I mentioned earlier, because that takes that rule out of the game completely. Pretty much everything is going to be full information, and you can help new players easily. Another positive is the gameplay is lightning fast. You draw a token at the end of your turn. You've got time to look of where you can place it. You've maybe got 2 or 3 different places you want to place this tile. Maybe 1 or 2 of them go or taken by somebody else, and maybe you just know what to do with it when it's your turn. You place it, you get your points. Next player starts to take their turn, you draw another tile. It's very, very quick, the turns, that's good. And there is a bit of tactical play, because sometimes you maybe want to play somewhere to get points or to control a castle, but then you see somewhere you can play, you can kind of cut somebody off. Maybe their group's getting a little bit too big and you just want to bash them on the head and keep them down. You can sort of cut them off if you want to. So the option's there, and that's all good fun. Let's have a look at the negatives. Now, the negatives are there are limited placement options. Sometimes you draw a tile, there is 1 good option, maybe 2. You know exactly what you need to do with it. Maybe you've got 2 options and somebody takes the other one, and on your turn you just place it, do what you need to, and you haven't made a decision. That the game's made the decision for you. This is where, for me, it comes back to another comparison with Kingdom Builder, where Kingdom Builder you can build yourself into a corner. Here you can do that as well, or you can try and plan ahead in order to give yourself more options, but sometimes the tile that you draw, there's only 1 place you can put it, or there's only 1 beneficial place you could put it, and you're stuck with that. And then finally, as with a lot of these sort of medium weight Euro games, I worry about replayability. What is bringing me back to this? after I've played it, let's just say 3 times. After I've played it 3 times, what am I going to see new? Now, with the Ireland board, you're going to have different goals every game. It's going to give you a different way to play, that's fine. With the Scotland game, I'm always going to have this different hand of goal cards, and it's going to change the way I play. For example, one of my goals was to just control Edinburgh. Fine, I can do that. Another goal a person had is they had to have more farms down the coastline than other players. So obviously, their next game, if they don't draw that goal, if they don't draw that goal early on in the game, their game is going to be completely different, which is cool. But I do worry about replayability in the long term, as I always do with these medium weight Euros. But having said that, overall, I did really enjoy this game. It is one I'm looking forward to playing again. I've still got time to back it. My friend has backed it, which is why I haven't backed it yet. I was prepared to back it immediately. We were driving back from the UK Games Expo. He backed it while we were in the car, so he's backed it before me. I don't really feel the need to back it, but at 45 euros with S and pickup and a box that isn't overly big, it's not a full ticket to ride size box, it's that slightly smaller one, so it won't take up too much suitcase space. So I've still got a chance to back it. I wouldn't mind having it on the shelf. It's pretty, it's my kind of game. That sort of medium weight Euro is that kind of game that I like. And as I said though, I just do wonder about replayability, but I think overall it's a very fun game and a lot of people are going to really enjoy this. That is Rebirth from Mighty Boards and Reiner Knzia. Thanks for watching. What do you think of this game? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like, share and subscribe and all that good stuff. And I'm going to get out of here now and review the next game, and I'll see you next week.